Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tahir.
Good morning, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, on the behalf of the whole NIT fraternity, I welcome you to this expert talk, and we all are very eager to listen to you, and to learn from you about the future of the world, about the future of the data, and how data will be the new oil, as you have said in many of your talks. So the future is all about data. So we'll be learning that much from you, and I hope that this is only a beginning to our association. Your association with NIT Srinagar. I hope that in future we will have many such expert sessions as well as many such interaction with the students as well. So, sir, thank you once again for joining us this afternoon, and I again welcome you on the behalf of the whole NIT fraternity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tahir. And what an extreme honor it is to be, given an opportunity to talk to your students. Over the last 20 years of my career, I've had an opportunity at various stages to meet a lot of associates, a lot of students who have been alumni to the institute, and I must tell you that every interaction, every engagement with the alumni has been wonderful. Has been something that has always enriched my life with valuable learnings. So that I think that kind of points towards or embodies the whole the role that NIT plays in shaping the careers and shaping the personalities of students. So I think that's it's testimonial to that. So I've had a lot of opportunities. In fact, a very good friend of mine passed out from NIT Srinagar, I think around 25 or 26 years ago, and he has his name is Ajay, and he has some very, very fond memories of NIT that he continues to talk to me about. And when I spoke to him the other day, and I told him I'll be doing that, I was able to bring in a lot of memories that he ended up talking about it for the next couple of minutes with me. So yeah, an honor to be with you guys.
Thank you, sir. Now I will ask Dr. Arif to formally start the session. Dr. Arif, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Tahir. Pleasure. Today, good afternoon, everyone, and I welcome you all on behalf of complete NIT fraternity. Today, we have with us Mr. Khalid Bani. Just giving a brief introduction. Just sit back and relax because he has a long introduction to go through. So I'll be just going through what exactly he has done for the society, into the field of data, and what exactly he has been doing for a long time, and how exactly we need his expertise in the area. We'll be dealing with that as well. So Mr. Khalid Bani currently is Director Sales India, Western Digital. We know this particular company as WD, and most of the people here in India know this company very well. Everyone has their hardwares in the computers, computers as well as in their devices, we keep such products with us. So, starting with his introduction, Mr. Khalid Wani joined Western Digital in the year 2008 as regional sales manager for the MENA region. By 2010, Indian region was also included in his portfolio. So currently, he has more than decades experience, almost 12 to 13 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. In technology distribution and international sales, and also has covered three major regions like South Asia, Middle East, and Africa for Western Digital. Prior to WD, prior to that, Mr. Wani was working with Lenovo and IBM for almost 4 years as a channel sales manager, which is one key position to deal with. As far as the education and background of Mr. Wani is concerned, he hails from Srinagar and went to Burnhall School and Visco. He is a graduate in economics from the University of Delhi. Mr. Wani is a master's in international business from University of Wollongong. This university is in Australia, and we know that currently this university is in top 200 as far as QS ranking is concerned.
It seems to be breaking.
Okay, I'll just make sure. Just a moment.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, I'm able to hear you. Can you hear me now? All right, sir. So, Dr. Zahir, if you don't find me audible, please let me know. I'll just go through his resume once again very quickly. Mr. Wani joined Western Digital in 2008 as regional sales manager for MENA region, Middle East and North Africa. We call it MENA region. By 2010, it got included Indian region as well as in his portfolio. Currently, he has more than 10 years of experience, almost 12 to 13 years of experience in this particular area in digital distribution and international sales, and has covered three major regions like South Asia, Middle East, and Africa for Western Digital. Prior to that, Mr. Wani has worked with Lenovo and IBM for almost 4 years as a channel sales manager, which is one important position to deal with. As far as his background and education are concerned, Mr. Wani hails from Srinagar and went to Burnhall School and Visco. He is a graduate in economics from the University of Delhi. His master's in international business from University of Wollongong, Australia. This university is among the top 200 QS ranking. Mr. Wani has recently given his article was published in Forbes with the title "Backing Up Data is Still Not a High Priority for Indians." Western Digital. That's from his point of view. There were so many questions that he dealt with, and it is one important aspect that we should definitely go through, and we should see this article and learn from it. Moreover, Mr. Wani has hobbies which we should also be inspired with. He's an avid biker. He loves machines, and machines are his passion. He's a travel enthusiast, and he creates a lot of scenic content. He loves nature so much. So now I request Mr. Khalid Wani to deliver his talk on the topic towards the data-driven world, opportunities and challenges. Sir, over to you. Sir, your mic.
Thank you, Dr. Arif. I appreciate the brief intro that you gave. Just want to add a couple of points to that. Right? I mean, I've been predominantly in technology for the last 20 years of my career, and my forte has been building businesses or building infrastructure for organizations in emerging markets. And I've worked predominantly across Middle East, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, mostly with technology companies, and particularly the last 13 years has been in data. And I cover fields from sales, marketing, research and development, and engineering sectors as well, particularly for India and Southeast Asia when it comes to Western Digital. I want to tell you guys a little bit about Western Digital before we actually go into the talk, because it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with what is happening with regards to data and how companies like Western Digital are actually playing a very, very critical role. Right? When you look at Western Digital as an organization, it started off many decades ago as a chip manufacturer, and over the last many years has evolved itself into one of the world's largest manufacturer when it comes to devices that store the global content. We at Western Digital believe, especially over the last couple of years, if you look at Western Digital, we acquired a lot of companies. Brands like SanDisk is a part of Western Digital. I'm sure all of you guys would have heard about SanDisk. And why am I talking about that? I don't want to talk about Western Digital a lot. The reason I'm talking about this is so that you are able to understand what is the importance for us when it comes to data and how we look at data, and that can then build the whole context of what I'm going to talk about in various segments. I don't have any slides. I don't have any presentations. I believe I thought that I'd rather give a very extempore talk about data and what's happening in that space, and able to express what my views are. So bear with me. I don't have any slides to share with you guys. So back to Western Digital. Western Digital, and you look at the global data footprint, we believe 50% of world's data at this point in time passes through devices which are actually enabled by Western Digital. One of the industry sources at this point in time, and I'd like to share this with you guys, there are close to around 2.5 quintillion bytes of data that is created every day. That was created every day in the year 2020, the year that we've been in the pandemic. And just for all of us to know, there are almost 18 zeros in a quintillion number. Now you can imagine the kind of data, particularly that has been created in the 2020, and there has been a reason to that, because the last 1 year of pandemic, it has significantly accelerated the digitization that has happened, and we'll talk about it later in the course of the day. And I'm sure you guys would have a lot of questions with regards to that, right? And this digitization, whether it is happening, in environments or trends with regards to the work from home environment, or the current study environment, which is being driven, remote learning, the uptake of the gaming segment which has come in, right? E-commerce particularly, you realize when you look at the global spectrum, and you look at some of these large e-commerce companies, and you look at the surge that they have seen on their revenues over the last many quarters, is predominantly because digitization has driven a behavioral shift in the consumer mindset. And the overall surge in content creation, right? I mean, you look at the kind of content that is phenomenally critical. And that is the fundamental backbone of our discussion today. Look at it this way, right? I mean, there's a massive digitization that is happening right now. Now that digitization is being stored, is being harnessed, is being built on various devices that are storing this data. The important part of the talk today is, what are we eventually going to do with that data, and what is that data what is it that can be done with this massive amount of data that is getting created in every segment, and how does that allow us to basically take care of bigger problems? One interesting thing that happened, you realize when you particularly look at the pandemic, look at the last 1 year, and you look at the countries which have been able to successfully tackle the pandemic better than a lot of other countries, right? We believe that the countries who've been able to address the pandemic a lot more better with regards to contact tracing, with regard to a lot of other things that have been built up, are countries who've been able to harness the data that they have created much more intelligently than a lot of other countries. And that gives them a very that puts them in a very strong position when it comes to tackling the pandemic. Right now, we established something. We established what is the mindset or the shift that is happening right now, because of which massive amounts of data is being created. It drove us to an assessment and to an agreement that digitization is something that has been significantly accelerated over the last couple of quarters, and it drove us to a conclusion that with this massive digitization happening, a lot of data gets created and a lot of data gets harnessed, and a lot of data is eventually going to get analyzed, and a lot of this data will eventually allow us to resolve a lot of bigger problems. So we set the context right. Now we're going to look at through the course of the talk areas wherein the impact of this data is coming in. Right. Let's start off with the business perspective. We clearly know that when you look at data provides a massive incremental opportunity for businesses. The ones who know how to capitalize on them for achieving their strategic business goal. Right, data has a huge potential, not just to help businesses grow by enabling better and faster decision making, but to also help people at large, and also help us live much various satellites revolving around our atmosphere, and they look at how the environment has been shaping over the last many years. Right, they look at sorry, my apologies. They look at how the global warming impact has been happening. They look at how the CO2 emission rates have. But you look at from the Industrial Revolution onwards, this emission has been consistently, particularly in the last 4 decades. And as of today, we are sitting at close to around 4. Look at the food scarcity that we're already facing, by the way, right? I mean, you realize that a lot of countries, particularly in Africa, the sub-Saharan Africa, wherein the food scarcity has already crept in, and it's not just now; it has been there for the last almost 10 years. There are times that there is a really dearth of available food resources that they have. Sometimes even in certain countries in Middle East. But the fact is, the richer countries are able to address their food scarcity problems because they are able to procure. The poorer nations are not able to do that, which leads to a massive malnutrition for their people. By 2050, in order to feed the growing world's population, it's very important, guys, and this is something we should all think about, right? The world food production actually has to grow by 70% in the next 30 years or just 19 years. We have to make sure, 29 years to 30 years, we have to make sure what we have time, a lot of resources, a lot of money on to understand what can we do. How can we make sure that we are harnessing data? The biggest challenge is when you look at it, again, first thing first, when you look at farmers as a segment, farmers are a segment wherein the use of technology is not as prevalent. It has also got to do with the cost of technology. Data able to do that we are able to create. We're able to create a pattern. We're able to create a pattern wherein we are able to analyze that what is the perfect yield for the soil type wherein that farming is happening. Right? Data-driven farming is something which can actually significantly change yields that we have right now from the farmland that we're using. Precision agriculture, right? It's an important aspect of data-driven farming. Helps us to analyze, what the improved yield can provide us. How much of this improved yield can come through. What is the moisture level that we have in that particular soil, and at this point in time, if we are able to deploy and use the data and create the data in farming, we'll be able to resolve the food crisis situation, hopefully in the next 30 years, right? That is how critical data is. You look at the water scarcity, the drinking water scarcity that we have. Though at the global scale, there is so much of water out there, but drinking water continues to be amazing. This data. It's about harnessing data. When you have this level of data that is created, then you have data scientists who basically work on this data, who work on the patterns, who work on understanding what this data can result. And so we covered, just to go back, we covered the organizational impact, the business impact that organizations could have from profitability perspective. We looked at what the global impact of data could be with larger problems, with climate change, with food crisis, with the water crisis that we have at this point in time, right? I want to shift gears from there and talk a little about the pandemic, right? And data in the healthcare space, right? And just so that we are all on the same page, I'm trying to squeeze in and summarize as much as I can in the short span of time we have. Rising populations and globalizations, and now when you look at the newer vaccination, are they able to create the antibodies? Are they able to harness the antibodies as a region? Right? A NASCOM report was tabled a couple of months ago in the artificial intelligence space, right? AI and machine learning is an area that is going to create a massive opportunity over the next many years, right? We look at a couple of other ecosystems. You look at particularly you look at startups, right? Startups are going to be in the space wherein the utilization of data is going to be super. A lot of startups right now in the country are actually around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data-driven data analytics, right? And that's an area which will have out of this $500 billion that is predicted, almost 10 to 15% of it is expected to happen in areas in these sectors, right? Sectors like consumer goods and retail is expected to be anywhere between $90 to $95 billion of growth segment. Agriculture, very important. You look at agriculture, smart farming in that space is going to add anywhere between $60 to $65 billion of additional revenue to the GDP. And you look at it, a lot of startups are actually choosing these sectors, right? And making sure they're doing what they can do with regards to data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning in these sectors to create a viable solution for all these sectors to grow, right? So that's with regards to our localized scenario when it comes to the region, right? And overall, when we look at the larger opportunity for us, that institutions or organizations or startups can play in every particular segment is going to drive a revolution of sorts, right? You look at entertainment as a segment, data is going to be critical for it. You look at gaming as a segment, data is critical for it. You look at education as a segment, data and harnessing the power of data is going to be super critical for it. You look at healthcare, we talked about the impact in healthcare. In the healthcare space, what all has been going on at a global level and also at the local level, it'll be very important. All that organizations and and the sectors and the segments have to do is to uncover the insights, which are hidden in the data. The problem, and now we're going to go. I want to slightly shift gears and go into addressing what are the problems that we have. Right. While we talk a lot about what are the areas in which data can play a very important part, there is a problem area as well. The problem is, a lot of this data is actually is hidden. Right. A lot of the data that gets created in various different silos. You look at your organization itself. Let's say, again, it'll be more hypothetical because, and maybe later down when we go into a question and answer session, we probably would have some questions which could harness a discussion in that space. When you look at an organization of your repute, your size, you'll realize you have data which is sitting in different silos, which is sitting in different spaces. The biggest problem that organizations or data scientists face is collaborating with various functions in order to get a transparent access to the data that they can get and add all of this together. It's like a jigsaw. It's like a huge, massive jigsaw which is sitting out there. We need to make sure that we have the capability of plugging this jigsaw together. Only when we are able to collaborate and get these various silos to share that data and bring that data together and then build the intelligence on top of that data, we will be able to analyze and transform that data to basically enable the businesses in the future. Without that, it's not going to be possible. And the biggest problem that data scientists or people who basically relate to this data and want to use this data to solve bigger problems, the biggest challenge that they face is that the data that is available right now is sitting in various silos, and they're not able to put them together. That's something that we need to overcome. There are various other problems. When you look at the agricultural space, capturing that data is not easy. When you go into the rural space, the use of technology in that space is not as prevalent as you would have in the urban space, right? Again, it's cost perspective. And interestingly enough, what scientists are now trying to do is trying to utilize the spectrum that is available in the rural areas by ways of television signals. I don't know how many of you recall, right? In the older days when we used to have a you guys just wanted to have a nod. You guys are still able to hear me, right? Everybody can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, sir, very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just thought that I've been constantly going on for 40 minutes. Let me quickly check if there is somebody on the other side.
Okay. Please go on. Thank you.
All right. So what has been happening is, interestingly enough, what has been happening now is old days, you used to have the old televisions. You used to skip the television channels. You used to realize that some television channels, they show blank, right? There's no feed on there. So basically, those are spectrums that were available. There are technologies that are now being researched whether we could use those television spectrum and convert them to collect data from the endpoints, which is the farmland, right? And then make sure that farmers are kind of given easy to use technology that they can actually use to create that or input that data, which could help in better yield production, right? And so the challenges in order to harness the data are quite phenomenal, and it's in every segment. I just picked up agriculture as a segment, but you'll realize that this challenge is with us in every particular space. It's not just agriculture; it's in healthcare. It's exactly the same. How do we make sure that there is a centralized way of looking at data that is captured by various hospitals regarding different diseases, right, in different countries? How do we all bring it together? Because unless and until that gets built together, the scientists, the data scientists, will not be able to read the patterns on the larger scale. It will be more on a domestic scale, and that's an area wherein a lot of organizations, a lot of companies are doing a lot. And again, this happens to be a problem. When it is a problem, it also becomes an opportunity. Especially to bright minds of NIT Srinagar. Think about what can be done. I mean, you're the engineering minds. You're the minds who basically are able or who basically build from a problem. So the biggest problem that organizations have right now to consolidate that data. What can be done, right? Can we bring up something which allows us at a domestic level or a rural level or an urban level to capture and have a common platform for data, right? So these are challenge sets that we also do have when it comes to the larger aspect of data out there, right? The other important thing that we need to keep in mind when we talk about data is the indicators within that data, which basically point towards certain problems, right? And it is very easy to see that, right? Had at the global level a thought process around what happened in the month of December 2019 being analyzed a lot more aggressively, perhaps we would have been able to nip the bud when it comes to the pandemic then and there. Right? That didn't happen, right? Primarily because at times what happens is data gets personalized, right? At certain level, right? And we tend not to share that in the wider audience, right? And with regards to COVID-19, I think that was predominantly the issue that happened in December 2019 or late part of 2019. Had that data been available at a larger play and had been taken so seriously and had been analyzed seriously, perhaps there would have been not such a mass level of devastation that we've been seeing for the last many months that would have happened, right? So it also kind of points towards a mindset issue, right? If the data, and it's more of a individual responsibility. If the data you believe can lead to a larger good, organizations, countries should share. And that becomes a very moral obligation for everyone who deals with data, right? So the problem is not only about consolidating data, utilizing that technology in order to bring the various data points together, but it also becomes important to make sure that you have that mindset wherein you are able to then go and share that data. Now this is on the larger play. You realize when we come at an individual level, right? We talked a lot at length about the data and the impact of data in the larger scheme of things from business perspective. Though we didn't touch business too much, maybe later we will. And if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to share some thoughts around that. But we covered the larger areas wherein the impact is more global, right? And the impact is more impacting our human lives. But when we look at a personal level, right, you realize even at a personal level, we are creating a lot of content. Consumers are creating a lot of content, and this content that they are creating is practically in every walk of their life. Whether it's in the personal space, whether it is in their work environment, workspace, a lot of this data gets created in the surveillance space, right? A lot of data is getting created, and particularly I wanted to touch surveillance as a space, both at the domestic level and at the public level, right? If you look at particularly like regions or countries like India, Africa, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, over the last 6 to 8 years, have been investing a lot of money in surveillance. Right, and surveillance is when you look at surveillance as a sector, and when you look at data and usage of data in surveillance, that itself is a subject which would require a couple of hours to analyze. Right, but I wanna pick up on that subject. Right, how data with regards to surveillance can be used in various ways. Right? The easiest way for us, when we look at surveillance as a feed or a surveillance as a data, we say that okay, it's for public safety, right? I mean, for sure, that is one of the ways to look at it. But when you look at data and when you look at surveillance and the way it is evolving, a lot of countries are even using surveillance as a data feed for pandemic. Right, they are able to make sure that they are able to analyze that in a crowded environment, how many are actually following the protocols of distancing, of wearing their masks, and they're able to facial recognize a lot of their data in order to make sure that they are able to deploy those factors or those terms that they have kept mandatory for their people. You look at the surveillance data and you look at it in a business environment. A lot of businesses are utilizing the surveillance data to understand consumer behavior. Right, when a consumer walks into a shopping mall, or when it walks into a large supermarket or a hypermarket, surveillance that traces the data from when the customer walks in all the way to walk into the checkout. What are the areas that he actually went? What are his areas or segments of aisles of interest? Right? Was he spending more time in the grocery? Was he spending more time in the cosmetic segment? Right? And then build a pattern around the consumer behavior. Sometimes, when you look at data in depth, it can be a little bit intimidating, right? Hey, is that happening? Yes, it is happening. A lot of technologies are being deployed around it. Some are good, some are bad. There are good faces to it, there are bad faces to it. The good faces, it allows businesses to maximize their targeting efficiencies towards a consumer. I'm a consumer. I have a mindset. I have a behavior. I have a pattern. If the businesses have to market to me, they will have to market to me what I am interested in. Right? Dr. Arif might not be interested in reading Rumi, but I am interested in reading Rumi. Right? But I mean, what are the patterns that can be analyzed in order for businesses to target me with a specific segment or market me a specific segment is something that is being utilized by businesses, and it's again coming from the data that is captured from surveillance feeds. Right. So what I'm trying to say is, when you look at data, it's everywhere in our life, guys. Right. I don't think there is a moment in our life wherein we are not actually linked to data. Right? Let's accept it. Without data, at this point in time, we won't be capable of doing what we want to do. But with the data, and if we deploy and we can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I saw a lot of movement happening around over there, so I wasn't sure what's going on. So with a lot of that data out there, we should be able to harness a lot and create a lot of opportunities in different fields. To conclude, because I want to leave the rest of the 30 minutes for any interaction that you guys want to have. To conclude, what I'd like to say is, look, undoubtedly data is the new oil, but I hope it's not the oil that is going to create a lot of carbon emission out there. I hope data is used for good. Though right now data, there's a lot of pros and cons with regards to data. Is data a boon or is it a bust, right? So, but again, I think that's probably a subject matter in its own, and probably could be discussed some other time. But right now, let's focus on what good we can utilize, what good can be done with regards to data. You guys, all your students and the faculty out there, are all bright minds, engineers who know a lot more better than me and us. I'm sure you will continue to encourage your team, your people, your students, to look at areas where they can harness the power of data in various segments: child education, child welfare, agriculture, environment, artificial intelligence, machine learning, healthcare facilities, primary healthcare, secondary healthcare facilities, cancer treatment. There's so much that can be done, right? I'm glad that you gave me an opportunity. Though, to be honest with you, I decided to go extempore. We did realize.
Sir, you are not audible. Yes, now you're audible.
Yeah, I think I got put on mute. So, right. So I realized that the fact that I'm extempore on this and I moved from one thing to another is predominantly because of stuff that comes into my mind. I have been passionate about data. Data is something that has been really, and I have a personal thing to that as well. And then sometime I'll talk about it later, right? 10 years ago, I went through some health crisis, and I did a lot of data analytics at that point in time with regards to that, right? But we'll talk about it sometime later. I believe that you and your students in your esteemed organization, I really want to thank you guys for choosing data as a subject and giving me an opportunity to basically talk very briefly about what I talked about. It's a very extensive subject, right? And you pick up every segment. You realize there are tons of things that are in that particular segment, whether it's agriculture, whether it's healthcare, that you can talk at length about, and what are the opportunities in that space, what are the problems in that space, because the bigger thing is you first have to identify the problem in each segment. When you're able to identify the problem in each segment, then bright minds like yourself would be able to kind of think what can be done in order to eradicate or get rid of that problem, right? I'm really thankful for you guys to give me an opportunity to talk to you about it, and I'm hopeful that as an institution, NIT will continue to inculcate, continue to bring forward the importance of data in our lives to the students, because it's only then that we will probably see something disruptive, something amazing that can come up, something innovative that all of you guys can come up with, right?
You'll be glad to know that we have started an MBA in data analytics from this year only.
Oh, wow, wonderful. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, Dr. Zahir, Dr. Arif, the rest of the team. I can see Irfan, Anna.
I think sir, our students are just watching you on Facebook and YouTube. I think Dr. Arif will just read out their questions if they had any queries. Dr. Arif, are you there?
Yes, sure, definitely. I joined from a different ID, so please don't get confused. I'm here. I got disconnected in between. Thank you so much, sir. We know that the world of data is very big, very eminent, vast, but you have beautifully, concised it in your talk, and we definitely understand all those aspects that you have covered related with the data and things which are related with it, specifically all the field. You mentioned about the healthcare sector, the pandemic that we are still going through, and how exactly the data plays a role in gathering all the information that we have regarding all the cases that are coming up, and how exactly the vaccines will be given to all the people. So consolidation of data and then using that data in a better manner. Then you talked about the economic survey that's an again important thing. Then you emphasized on the role of artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, Internet of Things, that how exactly these could be utilized for building the businesses and specifically for the budding entrepreneurs. That's a wonderful insight that you have given. And you talk specifically on the healing curve. We'll definitely would like to know much about that. That was a very brief introduction of the healing curve, but we'll definitely look forward for that. And your how we usually, whenever we talk about data, we do not see anything related with the CO2 emission and the carbon footprints, but you have very beautifully, brought that up, that exactly we have to see that that particular aspect also. So you mentioned about the food crisis thing and how exactly data can help. So we would like to let you know that we very recently made a very minor contribution with the Hult Prize event, and that the theme was food for good. Dr. Tahir might give you better insights, but the students, what they did, they presented their ideas. So I see that how exactly those students, particularly all those students, the 50 teams, the participating teams in that Hult Prize were from NIT Srinagar. Top 3 has been sent to the international platform. They'll be participating there. So they can definitely inculcate your ideas, your expertise, so that they can improve their ideas. Thank you so much, sir. So I have a little list of questions with me. There are some
before you move to the questions. Very interesting that you talked about the Hult Prize. I wanna introduce you and the rest of the team to something called data innovation. We run an annualized platform called Data Innovation Bazaar. Now, in Data Innovation Bazaar, what we do is we encourage. It's mostly companies, startups. We encourage startups to come in and present their ideas with regards to what they have come up with regards to data and what data can be used to resolve bigger problems. And we have a funding program that is in place. So I'd be, the reason I'm talking about that in the public forum, because I want to make sure that you and people out there understand that if there is anything that we as Western Digital can be of help to inculcate and look at ideas that are coming up. I'd really love to hear from you and the rest of the team about it, and include those ideas in our next Data Innovation Bazaar that we will run.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, over to you. The questions.
Yeah, Dr. Tahir, anything you would like to add, please, Dr. Tahir?
It's a wonderful. It will be a wonderful opportunity for the students, and I am very hopeful. And Khalid sir will be aware of the fact that in Valley we have some bright minds, although they lack a bit of exposure, but we are trying our best to actually trying to make them interact with globally renowned personalities. And I'm hopeful that in a couple of years we'll have some wonderful talent coming up from NIT Srinagar, and with collaboration from organizations like WOD and some other companies that we have been talking to. I hope that we will be able to achieve our goals in near future. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm so sorry. I know that you probably eagerly want to go to the question sections as well, right? But I don't think it's only few bright minds. I think we are full of bright people, right? And you have no ideas, guys, how privileged and how honored you made me feel by actually giving me an opportunity to address. I'm just hopeful that I'm able to contribute whatever little bit I can.
Sir, I will make sure that you will have many such interactions and collaborations with NIT Srinagar.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, sir, and pleasure and honor is ours. Sir, I have the list of questions. There are three questions that I'll be clubbing it up. The questions are: how do you see the evolution of data in the past decade, and what exactly the future could be? The second question that is related is data is the new gold, new oil, as you have already said, Dr. Tahir has mentioned. Being a stakeholder in this field, how do you see this statement, and how far the worth of data will go? Another question is very much related with it, but the COVID-19 aspect has been included. How do you see COVID-19 and future of data? What's beyond COVID-19 in the field of data?
Okay. All right. Let me take that question. Though it seems to have been clubbed, but let me try and take that question one after the other. Right? The evolution of data in the last 10 years. If you look at, particularly you look at last 10 years, right? There's been a phenomenal shift, right? And we briefly talked about it, right? But if you break this last 10-year period, right, and you just look at the last 2 years alone, right, almost 40 to 50% of digitized data. There has been a lot of data, right? I mean, data is nothing new to us. I mean, if you look at humans and you look at human history and you go back in the old days, the creation of data has been happening from eternity, right? Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, the creation of data has been happening from eternity, right? From Bahikatas all the way, many decades ago to the red books and so on and so forth. The data has been captured, right? Up until some years ago, a lot of this data continues to be in the analog form. With digitization, you realize that first that happened is when digitization started, it was all about having the data creation for then and there, right? And then we started having, then we started actually translating the analog data into a digitized data. Right, we started digitizing a lot of the analog data, but we only started digitizing analog data, which was probably relevant to us at that point in time. Right? I'll quote an example: Encyclopedia Britannica. Right? A lot of us, up until maybe around 15 years ago, would actually end up buying the Encyclopedia Britannica in a book form. Right? But Encyclopedia Britannica doesn't exist anymore. Right? A lot of such analogs translated into digital. What got replaced by Encyclopedia Britannica was probably the likes of Wikipedia, which is Encyclopedia Britannica equivalent, but created by content which is user generated. Right? Simultaneously, a lot of such analog data platforms, we saw them getting converted into the digitized platforms, but in a very limited form. A couple of years ago, not just a couple of years ago, maybe a decade ago, 6-7 years ago, was it 7, 8, 10? Yeah, somewhere around that, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, I came across a very, very interesting company, right? A company called Metrofile. Now think about it. Look at it from an idea perspective, right? Because data is not only about now, right? In order to utilize the data to basically benefit us, you basically have to include probably a historical trail of that data going backwards, maybe a couple of decades or years. Right, in order to basically get more accuracy around predicting that data, right, or analyzing that data. And the company called Metrofile, what they would do is they would actually go to large organizations who basically would have been in business for like 40 years, 50 years, and so on and so forth, and tell them that, look, you got into digitization 10 years ago, and you have ERP systems, you have your systems up in place maybe for the last 10, 15 years ago, and you're able to analyze what you had in the last 10, 15 years of that digital data. But what about the analog data that you have that's been sitting with you for the last 25, 30 odd years? We will digitize this for you, right? And they started digitizing that data for those companies. From there, they moved into healthcare sector and started digitizing digitizing analog data, which is sitting in that space. But then you realize that, look, I mean, at some point in time, you can't actually digitize that entire analog data, because the evolution of data has been such that this data has been getting created in an analog form for decades and decades, right? So the evolution of data has been gradual. It has been from analog predominantly to digital. And when you look at from digital space, the last 2 years, guys, this has been the super acceleration. And particularly the last 1 year, because the last 1 year has actually, significantly increased the pace at which the digitization has happened, because obviously, pandemic happened, most of us confined to our homes, working from home, students operating from homes, companies putting infrastructure that they can enable people to work from home, led to a massive digitization. In the last 1 year alone, I believe almost 50% would have been added towards digitization aspect, right? And that is, and in my opinion, that has been the gradual evolution of data that you continue to see. I hope that answers the question. The second question was, data is the new oil, and what is the worth of this data? Undoubtedly, data is coined as the new oil, minus the emission impacts that it has. In my opinion, well, look, there are pros and cons. Data has its pros, data has its cons as well. It's all about how you utilize that data. The worth of this data is phenomenal if you use it in the right way. If you use it in the right way, we can practically overcome a lot of large challenges that we have, not just as organizations, right, but in a global footprint level. In healthcare, I talked about it. I talked about it in critical areas, which is food scarcity, which is global warming. No, interestingly, I'll tell you one more point. Right now, when you look at the digital data that we have available with regards to, let's suppose, food scarcity, right now we're only analyzing 1% of the data that we have available. 1%. And with that 1%, we're able to go and tell governments in Africa what they should do in order to improve the yield of their soil, because their soil is not as lucrative as a lot of other aspects that you have. You look at water scarcity. Again, 1% of the data is analyzed. We still have 99% of data left that has to be analyzed, that has to be studied, that has to be read in order to overcome these problems, right? I mean, the maximum data that we were able to read was during the pandemic time. You look at the pandemic, a lot of people came up and said that, normally if a vaccine, I mean, just food for thought, very important, food for thought. Normally, when you look at the vaccination programs, it used to take years, if not decades, to basically develop and produce a vaccine that could help eradicate a particular problem. You look at polio, or you look at any of those, it took years and decades to build that vaccine. During the pandemic, it took less than 8 months to actually start developing vaccines that could have positive results, that could have positive impact. It was predominantly because of data, because of the data that was being created, the digital data that we had, the access to the data that we had. We were able to predict a large, or scientists or healthcare professionals were able to predict large, large or analyze large sets of those data points in order to come up with the vaccination or various different vaccines. So that's the importance of data. So the worth of data is is phenomenal. Right? I don't think we are in a position to undermine any of that data. I hope that answers the question number 2. Second is COVID-19 and future of data. I kind of covered both of them together. We looked at COVID-19. You saw how countries who analyze the data very, very effectively. You look at examples like Australia, right? I mean, where the rate of spend is the rate of the spread is phenomenally low, right? Primarily because the amount of data that they analyzed from contact tracing perspective and so on and so forth was phenomenal, right? A lot of countries who basically analyze this data a lot more better were able to have better control over it, right? So yeah, I mean, with regards to COVID-19. Data has been super important, and with regards to the future of the data, it will continue to be very important. I hope that answers the question number 3.
Yes, so thank you so much. I don't know how much time we can ask you for because we have few more questions with us.
Go ahead. Just give me 1 minute.
Sure.
Not 1 minute. You can really say.
Sure, sir. So participants, we have Mr. Khalid Wani with us. He'll be back. Yes, he's back. Yes, thank you. So I'll just ask the next question. That's very important from the perspective of the Indian population. That India currently, we know that 70% of the population comes under the bottom of the pyramid. And moreover, internet penetration is another challenge. So basically, we are talking about the challenges here. So being an important stakeholder in this area of data, how do you see the behavior of such population that can be changed or motivated in the coming times? You also discussed about few things related to the behavior in your article that was in Forbes, but also I think you can throw some light here as well. Over to you, sir.
Very another as I said, this is such a close to heart subject for me, and there is so much that we can talk about it. The point that you raised, or the point that the question raised, is a very, very important point, right? And data thrives on what? Data thrives on connectivity. Super important, right? I mean, if you got the right level of connectivity, you would realize that you will have a lot more of you will have better quality of data, right? You'll be able to analyze better data. You'll be able to create a lot better data. So connectivity is undoubtedly one of the most important aspects of it, right? In the current day, and when you compare it to, let's say, you go back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there has been a significant improvement that has happened in order to establish that connectivity. You go back like 5 years ago, we hardly had maybe 100 million to 120 million people connected to internet. You look at in the last half a decade or so, we now have approximately around 600 to 675, 700 odd million people who are connected to the internet. Maybe slightly more. I mean, I might not have the right figure. I somehow feel I don't have the right figure, but I definitely is more than 650, 700 million people connected to the internet. India happens to be, and since this question happens to be more country specific, India happens to have the largest largest smartphone penetration growth over the last couple of years, right? So the access to smartphone and availability of data connectivity or broadband connectivity in the rural pockets is significantly better. Are we there yet? No, we're still not there. We still have a mile to go, right? But there has been a significant improvement that has happened from the connectivity perspective. Right, and government initiatives, privatized initiatives have also led to this significant growth. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
It was related to the behavior of the people, how they can. And there's one question from Anam Firdaus in the chat box, as you can see, that the behavior, how exactly the behavior of the people, it's not contributing. They're not contributing to the data. Like during reporting data, they were biased, specifically in the Arogya Setu app. Many people didn't provide correct data. How are we going to deal with it? And as you said, there's a problem of data stored. So that is a different question. We'll see that later.
Yes. So I think we addressed the question that when it comes to having the access to the data is far more better.
Yes.
Are we there? Not yet. Yes, we are getting there. I think there's tremendous effort that is happening from privatized sector as well as the government sector to enable as much connectivity as they can to all the far-flung areas. And it keeps on getting better. But a very, very interesting point about data and the comfort around sharing the data. See, most of the time, what happens is it's a mindset that gets created, right, in the consumer's mind. Sometimes. For the sake of being not too harsh on my comment on this one, sometimes what happens is we don't do enough to make the consumer feel comfortable about sharing his data, right? And this is a larger problem, right? Because it's always viewed as very suspicious that why I don't want to provide this data. It can be used against me, right? And because of that mindset, when that mindset comes in, you realize that consumers are a bit wary about providing all the relevant data that is needed in order to set up something, and this is a perennial problem. The only way to eradicate the problem is technology cannot do anything about it. Technology cannot do anything about it. It's a problem that has to be dealt by people who are in that position to make consumers feel comfortable about what they want consumers to share. Unfortunately, that's an area where I as a person, or you as a person, will not be able to do much from technology perspective. It's about creating that larger belief ecosystem, which allows consumer to be very comfortable to share what needs to be shared from data perspective. And you realize a lot of countries are able to do that, right?
Yes. So we have next question. And this question is particularly from the perspective of the students and from the perspective of the learners. There are a few questions that I'm clubbing. You can definitely answer. So how should the students prepare themselves? As you know that we are having an MBA data analytics. We'll be giving the students a chance to learn about data analytics in their final years, and your suggestions. And as you said, you have worked a lot in your difficult times when you are not well, and you worked a lot in the area of data analytics. So your guidance definitely would help us as well as the students to learn more. So how should the students be preparing themselves for the world of data, and what kind of certifications they can do to add to their CVs? There's another question that how exactly they can improvise themselves, make it rich in terms of data analytics. And this question is not only from the perspective of the students, but also from the perspective of the faculties, that how exactly we should be preparing ourselves to deal with the students. So another question is from Nikita Tyagi. She's asking, it's in the chat box, the development and nurturing of which skills related to data harnessing and innovation be considered for organizations. So I'm just clubbing up these things from the perspective of the academia and from the perspective of the organizations. Your call, sir.
If you put a very, I can go another 1 hour.
Just a brief thing, just to, so that we can.
Because it's a very interesting subject, right? Look, in my opinion, again, this is my personal opinion, and I hope my personal opinion has a lot of takers as well out there in the domain. I don't know much about that. the most important thing to prepare for anything wherein you would need to utilize and create a broader effectiveness around the data that you have is to understand a problem that you need to solve. If there is a particular problem that you need to solve, and you are able to develop a larger understanding of that problem, you will find ways and means to gather the data around that particular problem. I'm just using that as a more of an example, and I'll go a bit deeper into the question again, right? And once you're able to do that, you'll realize that you will be able to bridge and create and develop the data that you need in order to eradicate that particular problem. Mine was a personal issue. I wanted to understand what's going on. I was able to analyze a lot around that problem and see, okay, what's going on, what's not going on, research a lot about it, and get to a conclusion as to what it is, right? Because I had a personal problem to deal with. Similarly, when you look at organizations, because the question is clubbed with an organization question, a lot of organizations look at the availability of data to resolve various problems, right? I mean, if you look at from engineering perspective, the data that you would probably have available on a particular product, which is giving certain problems, would be utilized to eradicate those problems. Simultaneously, what is very important with data is to understand, because sometimes what happens is there is so much of data that is available to us that you need to kind of pinpoint in terms of what is the level of data that you want to utilize for a particular problem. So it's not a very easy situation to be in, right? But it falls down to the basic essence of around what would you want to, what is that problem area that you want to address or you want to eradicate, and what is that data that you can collect or capture that could be analyzed to eradicate that problem. That should be the fundamental mindset when you talk about data, and that's what organizations do. You look at organizations, they pick up various areas wherein they have certain problems in. It could be related to their human resources, it could be related to their finance, it could be related to their operations, and then you look at the data which is available, harness that data, analyze that data, and are able to predict what or are able to deploy what is needed to eradicate that particular problem. So that should be the clear mindset. As far as certifications are concerned, look, there are tons of certifications out there, right? I mean, especially over the last couple of years, there are a lot of certifications that have been rolled out, which allow you to be better at reading the data. Right? End of the day, data is data, right? Unless it only is able to benefit you or the humanity at large if you're able to read, analyze, and use it for a lot of predictive analytics, right? And a lot of certification. I mean, I can possibly send across a few of those across to Dr. Tahir and Dr. Arif, so you can circulate them with the rest of the team. But irrespective of the certificates out there, I think the biggest thought process that you as students will have to kind of harness in your mind is, with a lot of data out there, what is the problem that I want to solve? What is the problem that I'm encountering, and what is the availability of data that I have around that problem that I can utilize in order to resolve that problem? That should be the clear mindset. As far as the academia is concerned, right? I think the fact that at NIT Srinagar you are giving such an importance to data sciences and making it a part of the curriculum for your master's program is a welcome step, right? It's very, very important that in this day and age we really give a lot of importance to data and data sciences, right? That's the way of the future, and it will help us as a society in all various different walks of our life.
Sir, one last question, and it comes from the statement that you gave earlier that data have got personalized. So as we know that we use Google accounts, maybe Apple accounts, iCloud, so we get some 5 GB, 10 GB, or maybe 15 GB of cloud storage. And users, they do not use that data, that much of storage a lot because of the security issues. So the security is one again important concern. And how do you see that? We have seen certain allegations on bigger giants, the companies. We should right now we're not taking names in the public forum, but we know that they have been accused of sharing data with other domains and out of the limited that particular premises they have shared the data. So how do you see data exploitation as a hindrance in the growth of data, and how could we convince consumer that the data are safe? Already you have answered the question that it's their approach that they can deal with. So the same question has been clubbed with Anam's question that she has asked in the chat box.
Yeah, I saw that question from Anam with regards to cloud storage and privacy and security issues. Right? Look, it's a very there are various different ways of looking at it, right? Yes, you're right. There have been compromises. There have been massive compromises, and without taking names, so what we also mentioned, there have been a lot of compromises when it comes to data, and these compromises that have happened have obviously created a lot of concerns around consumers with regards to the safety of their data, the safety of their content, right? At the end of the day, a lot of data that we create is very personal, right? And I wouldn't want that data to be shared without my consent and without my knowledge, right? And there are certain data that irrespective of what it is, I wouldn't want anybody to share that data right across. Now, I think there has to be, and this is my view, right? My personal view. What plays a very important part is, and I mentioned about it, way earlier in the session, is one of the biggest problems with data is that it is sitting in various silos, right? The way, and it is a jigsaw. The only way you will be able to create a bigger impact is if you are able to bring that data together, analyze it for the larger good. I think there has to be some regulatory framework which allows organizations to share data or data points which are more relevant to a bigger problem, right? When it comes to that frame, then I think it's okay, right, with regards to sharing or consolidating on the data. There are certain data points wherein we provide a consent that I'm okay, right? Right now, actually, what happens, it's very interesting. You sign up on anything, right? Any app or any platform that you sign up, you go through a multiple page disclaimer which none of us read. You go to the bottom of it, you say I accept, right? Down there in those disclaimers, you always have about policies with regards to the data sharing, right? Hence, going back to Anand's question, you realize when it comes to cloud storage, you realize a lot of us don't feel comfortable about hosting a lot of that data in our cloud. We might have terabytes of data sitting on our personalized data storage devices. Could be a hard drive or a flash drive or a pen drive or our phone, but we restrict ourselves when it comes to having a lot of data stored on the cloud. And again, it is because of the fear factor that the consumers have with regards to sharing anything which is very, very personal to them, right? Could be their bank statements, could be their family moments, could be anything, right? Hence, yes, there are still concerns with regards to the public cloud platforms and the data that the consumers want to share. But in my opinion, none of the data that consumers would be sharing in the public platform would be data which could result in which could be utilized for bigger problem resolutions, right? If you look at cloud, particularly, look, cloud is a phenomenal concept, right? And we as Western Digital, we enable a lot of companies who build the data centers, who then eventually support the cloud infrastructure for various companies. With clouds emerging, the accessibility of data becomes a lot more easier. The consolidation of the data becomes a lot more easier, and then collaboration of data, that data also becomes a lot more easier. So cloud is a phenomenal concept that is available right there. As a consumer, yes, there is a paranoia. There is an uncertainty. There is always a feeling that I don't want to go completely all out on the cloud and have all my data stored on the clouds. And and this is not only for you, it's all for me as well, right? I would probably do the same thing. But when you look at cloud, I think the functionality of the cloud is more. The benefits of the cloud and the functionality of the cloud is driven more towards larger enterprises, larger organizations, larger healthcare facilities, who can actually do a lot more by actually collaborating together on the cloud platforms. And with regards to security, when you talk about the enterprise class platforms on cloud, there has been a lot of improvements in that over the last many years because of the compromises also that we have seen that have happened. A lot of additional layers of security have been deployed by various putting in a lot of other platforms in there. So I think as new technologies come in, it takes a while to kind of make them robust. I think it's a lot more better than what it used to be in the past.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for addressing all the questions. And we had few left out questions, but I guess every question has been answered in your talk as well as in your further discussions. So, had I been in that position with your expertise, I would have definitely invited you to take care of this particular course of data analytics and run it through your had been the chance to send all the students to you and learn the things. I would have definitely done that. But I think Dr. Tahir might have to add few things that how exactly he can this is just an idea in my mind. He knows things better. So, Dr. Tahir, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Khalid sir, for a wonderful session and the insights that you shared with us. I think it was, as I have been saying, that the first of a start of our collaboration with you, and I hope that you will in future share your insights and your views with our students. Taking some courses in marketing and in data analytics, as well as you have agreed to be part of our visiting faculty. Thank you so much for that, sir. And I hope that our association and our collaboration will bear fruits, and the students from this institution will rise and shine. And that's what I have been hoping and trying to do from last couple of years here at NIT Srinagar, and with the support of administration, I believe that we will be able to make a unique kind of a business school here. So thank you again for such wonderful insights, such wonderful sessions, sir. I will ask Dr. Arif to formally conclude the session.
Thank you, Dr. Tahir.
Before Dr. Arif concludes the session, I want to say a few words, if at all it's okay for you.
Yes, definitely.
Maximum.
Sir, we are in fact delighted to hear more and more from you. I think I have tons of questions about data and about what companies actually want right now, how companies are, what they expect, how academia can, how we can change the academics, how we can incorporate the changes that actually industry is looking forward for universities. There are tons of questions that we are eager to ask you, and I am hopeful that we will get many such future sessions with you where we can ask you questions wherein you will guide us for which we can, our students, not only MBA students, I have been getting calls from many BTech students yesterday that please ask how we can improve our skills so that companies like WD, companies like Infosys, we will have greater acceptability there, because we have courses like BTech in CSC, BTech in IT, then MTech in IT, and MTech in CSC. Many of students were calling me yesterday to get insights from you, how they can improve their skills, what are the courses that need to be incorporated. There are tons of questions that we are eager to ask you, but I know that there is limited time availability right now, and we will, the course of get guidance from you. I'm very hopeful about that.
Sure. I'm always available.
I thank you so much, sir. Sir, you have been very kind. You have been very kind with us. You have readily accepted our invitation for this expert talk, and I'm very much thankful to you, sir.
No, look, as I said, right. It's a bit emotional, right? I've been out of my home for 20 years now, right? And though I've been regularly coming home every time, and as I said, you probably will find me riding somewhere around there during the summers, right? I love it, it's. But again, that's a different discussion, right? Look, I'm privileged. I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to talk to the students. It's important that in order, and you raised a very, very important aspect. While we talked about data sciences, it's important that we prepare students who are emerging out of colleges for the next level of the corporate work environment. Right? While we pay a lot of attention to developing capabilities in different areas, engineering, could be technology, could be manufacturing, could be data sciences, could be international business, and so on and so forth. I think one thing which is very, very important for students to sharpen their skills and make sure that they are actually ready for is around soft skill development. Soft skill development is something, and I can, very briefly, I can tell you that soft skill development is something which organizations right at this point in time are looking at when they're hiring new talent in. You might be great at what you do from technology perspective, but if you don't have the skills, or if you don't have the understanding of skills which are needed by the organization in the areas of collaboration or in the areas of other soft skill areas, I think you basically have you probably have things that you really need to brush up, right? And those are areas that, anyways, we'll leave it for some other time. But in order to conclude, again, look, I'm extremely delighted to be a part of this session, and I look forward to areas wherein I can help. Nothing would give me more pleasure than that. So again, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबका, आप लोगों ने मुझे टाइम दिया, तो जो तुम्हें ये not only just the time that तो जो तुम्हें ये gave me an honor to come and address your students. I feel extremely privileged. I wish the students the very best in their future. If there's anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out to me through Dr. Tahir or Dr. Arif, and I'll try to do whatever I can to help and assist in whatever personal capacity that I can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Before you leave, I just want to mention that you mentioned twice that it was your honor and privilege to connect with NIT Srinagar. Sir, I'd like to tell you that on behalf of a complete NIT Srinagar fraternity, that it was our pleasure, the feeling is likewise, and it was our pleasure and honor to have you with us. You delivered a wonderful talk on your area of expertise, and definitely the students would be having so many learning from this particular session, and we'll be having this in our repository at YouTube. You can also watch it again, sir. and all the participants that you have seen, you can definitely go through that particular link of the YouTube channel NIT Srinagar. I'd like to thank Dr. Tahir for bringing such an eminent personality to the department and to NIT Srinagar with such an expertise in his area. I'd like to mention Professor Rakesh Sehgal. Right now, he couldn't join the session because of his busy schedule, but I'm sure had he been here, he'd have definitely encouraged us, as well as he'd have thanked you, Mr. Wani, for your eminent talk and your support for the institute as well as for the department. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you, Dr. Tahir, and rest of the participants. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
sir.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Bye. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.